Hello, in this demo we'll show how we can take an existing CAM library template and add UCD application components to it. To begin with, let's look at our existing template in CAM. We have a template called Multi-Cloud MariaDB Liberty. As the name suggests, this template will deploy two virtual machines in different clouds. In this case, we're using AWS and IBM Cloud. And we'll also install some middleware for both MariaDB and Liberty. This template is backed by a Git URL. It has a number of parameters already defined for it, and you can see we're also using input data types to capture some commonly shared values across our different cloud connections. Next, let's look at UrbanCode Deploy. Again, we have an existing application. In this case, we're going to use the JKE application. We have a number of environments already. Let's take a quick look at the components. We have a component to deploy our database updates for our application. It has a specific component process for deploying into MariaDB. Similarly, we have a component for our web application. And again, these are components that will install our application. This case is going to install the WAR into our web server. In the template designer, I have already cloned in the repository for the existing multi-cloud deployment. I'm going to make a copy of that template, and I'm going to paste it into the application templates folder. And I'll give it a new name. We can take a quick look at the contents of the existing library entry. We see we have our two virtual machines in AWS and SoftLayer and a number of null resources. Take a look in the source. We have some provisioners that will install different middleware for us onto these endpoints. The first thing that we want to do is update the CAM template JSON to give our library entry a unique name. So let's go ahead and call it JKE UCD. The next thing we'll do is add in our application components. From the designer, our components drawer shows all of the UCD components that we have. We'll start with adding our database component onto our database server. We'll select our application and we'll use component process deployment. We'll select the component process that we want to use for this component. Looking at the source, we can see a number of UCD specific resources and provisioners have been added. We have a provisioner on our VM to install a UrbanCode Deploy agent. We also have a number of new resources in Terraform to do things such as create environment, create the resource tree, and map in components and agents, and lastly, execute our component process for this particular component. We see the process we've defined has been captured. We'll do the same thing for our WAR component, adding that to our web server, selecting the component process we wish to use. We'll also specify the definition of our database host. By default, this is localhost, but in this case, it's going to be a dynamic value, which we can pull from the resources selection in the property diagram editor. We'll use the IPv4 address off of our database server running in IBM Cloud to dynamically load that property value. We can also sequence the deployments to make sure that the components run in a specified order. We need our database component to run first. This adds dependencies in our underlying Terraform. We can also update the dependencies to ensure that our null resource middleware deployment executes before our UCD application deployments. We'll do this both for our web application and for our database. We can also add an optional output to our template to capture the application URL once it's up and running. Note that our template outputs are dynamically loaded into our CAM variables. Back in CAM, I previously mentioned we were using shared parameters for some of our cloud data. I also have defined a shared data type for my UCD credentials. I'm going to add this to the template in the template designer. Future releases will make this definition a little easier. For now, we can just do it manually. I put in the information about my input data type, and then for the handful of UCD specific CAM input parameters, I can point their default values at the value loaded up from the shared parameter. You'll see our syntax validation there has caught an error I made with a missing bracket. We'll fix that easily. We're now ready to push the changes we've made into our Git repository. We'll note all the new files that we've added are detected by the Git editor. Add a commit message to add the commit and synchronize by pushing our changes into the remote. Next, we'll publish this as a new template into CAM. Looking at our library, we'll see our new template is available. The parameters are successfully loaded, including our UCD credentials. Let's go ahead and deploy this template. At deploy time, we'll select the specific set of data objects we want to use for our shared parameters. And we'll change a few of the other defaults there to provide unique server names for our agents for this application. We need to specify the environment in UrbanCode Deploy that will be created, and of course the agent names for each of the new agents that'll be installed. We can verify the status of our deployment with the Terraform log file. After several minutes, all of our infrastructure has been provisioned in both AWS and IBM Cloud, and all of our UCD application constructs have been created. Looking at our output variables, we can see the value of our application URL, and opening that URL in a new browser tab shows the running application. We could log into the application to verify the database has been successfully connected. So what really happened on the UCD side? Let's take a look. On our application, we've created a new environment. This environment has a resource tree a couple new agents that we show online, and our components are mapped into the resource tree as expected. We've also executed 2 component processes against this new environment. Our database component we can look at the history of, including the log output for exactly what executed on the target agent machine. Similarly, we can see the status of the execution of our war file and all of the different steps that UrbanCode Deploy is executed. So this demonstrates how we can use an existing template in CAM to do full stack application deployment within UrbanCode Deploy. Thank you.